German businessmen can agree on one thing. Americans are too concerned with finding the answer to a problem as opposed to the steps that need to be carried out to reach a solution. And once Americans do find the answer, it typically changes. German culture prides itself on being very forward thinking. They believe their American counterparts rush to solutions and are constantly having to adjust on the fly. Many Germans also view Americans as being too casual in business dealings, from what we wear to how we communicate without titles, including any children that may be present. Conversation is usually very respectful and involves everyone being referred to by his or her title. Another area of American business dealings that Germans see as a problem is America's obsession with considering risk taking to be a positive characteristic. In Germany, being a risk taker is considered a negative characteristic, often related to being reckless. This can cause a challenge in a business negotiation that can derail an entire business exchange. One thing Germans and Americans can agree on, however, is if you work hard, you get to play harder.
Of Germans, but the most popular encounters are in business. This can be noticed in the actual practice and also their mindsets. Their business practice can leave an American confused as we are not so interested in getting to know one another as we are about making money. In Germany, this is not the case. Germans want successful business just as much as the next guy, but with actual meaningful partnerships on a more personal basis than here in America. Before getting into business, Germans typically have a few minutes of banter and go over their weekends or the latest scores for their favorite football clubs. This gets everyone comfortable and a sense of whom they're dealing with. Germans also have heavy emphasis on the task at hand versus the accomplishment that comes along with it. They believe praise is simply not being criticized. Everyone just wants to do their job and not be rewarded for something outlandish as what they're told to do. It is important to follow the rules and adhere to all agencies. Germany is essentially the one country holding the EU together with their strict monetary and fiscal policies. They work hard and save a lot, unlike their counterpart Greece. Influences actions in the workplace. Germans believe American positivism is a distraction from genuine problems. They would prefer to plan for the best but expect the worst. The Germans play it safe and respect the market's danger and risk. These people are grounded and don't let their salary go to their heads. They are also proponents of giving praise in the form of simply not criticizing someone, as mentioned before. They also do not like to cut corners and find even the smallest things like signing off on packages for a supervisor to be unacceptable. Germans enjoy to work independently and are open to alternatives versus the American, the way it has always been done. You can see how these few things can influence business and really all interactions in Germany.
While a lot of Germans are favorable of Americans, a lot are unfavorable. In fact, 47% are unfavorable and 51% are favorable. While 51% is a large amount, 4% is a small difference. A huge reason for this is the way Germans interact and learn about Americans. A lot of their negative ideas come from Hollywood and stories from World War II. A majority of people who are favorable of Americans get their views from politics and actual interactions with Americans. Common negative ideologies include that Americans worship money, they make too much small talk, and they think Americans are either fat or fitness fanatics.
Workers are highly protected by labor laws in Germany compared to the United States. If an employee were to be terminated from their job, the employer would have to give notice before they did so. Depending on how long the employee worked at the company, the notice would have to be given 1 to 7 months before the employee was terminated. The employee also has a chance to appeal the termination in court. Germany also has a law that will protect women workers who are pregnant. They have a total of 36 months leave, 6 weeks prior to the birth and 8 weeks after giving birth of paid leave. The mother and the employer can agree on a parental leave of 36 months, and after this leave, the employer will give the woman the job she had prior to giving birth to her child. The average working hours are 37.5 hours per week, and the annual vacation days given to employees vary between 20 to 30 days for Germans. This is different for Americans, where the average work week is 40 hours, and the average vacation time varies with how long you have worked with the company, but it is between 9 and 21 days. The value-added tax, VAT, the tax on a purchase price, the purpose of a VAT is to generate tax revenues and to the government, similar to the corporate income tax or the personal income tax. Germany's VAT rate is at 19%, whereas in the United States it is different depending on which state you're in. Germans have more vacation time and are just as productive as Americans. Germans work an average of 1,436 hours per year, while Americans work 1,804 hours per year. You would think that Americans would be more productive than Germans, with working more than 360 hours than them. But we aren't. According to an article I found from American Express, an American who was working as a manager for a German company described Germans as closed off and individualistic. Americans tend to have lots of meetings and ask for help when faced with a problem at work. Germans are less social in the workplace and view results as the best indicator of results. And Americans are more social at work and view time as money. Germans work fewer hours per week because they don't socialize as much as Americans do and get their work done, and save the socializing for when they get home to their families. Many Americans think of work as just clocking in and putting in the hours, and many don't like what they do. They don't take pride in their work. Once Americans start taking pride in their work and make sure things get done, that is when we'll stop looking at work as a dull routine and more of a profession.
Subcultures in Germany. One of them is Gothic. It started out in the 70s. The style of music they like to play is hardcore heavy metal, or people will say Gothic rock. They dress in dark attire, and their makeup is really dark too, with using black makeup. Germany holds an annual festival for music like this, called the Wave Gothic Treffen, which is basically a festival for dark music. Second culture is neo-Nazis. They are a small group of young male skinheads and a supporter of Nazism, and they believe in the philosophy, and they're starting to gain awareness now in the country. So the next subculture is ravers. Germany is a country that's really huge in techno music. They have a huge event called May Day, which is in Dortmund, Germany, and it has a bunch of artists that plays music from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. and attracts a lot of people around the world. The next subculture is Germany. There's a lot of people that like to drink beers, because Germany produces a lot of different beers and beers a year, and citizens love to drink beer as drink to as a relax. And also they have 10 beer festivals a year, and the famous one is the Oktoberfest.
In Germany, half of all companies are facing a shortage in professionals. Large corporations with more than 500 employees were hit the hardest. Employees complain about lack of skilled workers. In a study that interviewed 1,400 HR managers in Germany, it shows that about 56% of German companies are getting employees from Southern and Western Europe. Most of them bring young graduates, and 62% and young professionals at 59%. The highest demand for immigrant professionals is in engineering, but there are staff shortages in hospitals, nursing homes, and in retail.
Some cultural HR policies and procedures to be considered is the H-1B visa. The H-1B visa is an easy way to allow U.S. employers to hire people from Germany to specialty occupations. Another procedure to be considered is pre-employment drug testing. That can determine if the foreign employers or job applicants are using drugs. Also to be considered is psychological evaluation. That's a good way of testing employees' behavior, personality, and capabilities. Another procedure to be considered is a background check. It's the process of looking up and compiling criminal, commercial, and financial records of a possible employee. It's a way for employers to trust the German employees on where they are from, what school they went to, or where they have worked before. One last procedure to be considered is pre-employment health screening. It's a way to know if the foreign employee is bringing any disease or sickness to America. It's also a purpose to evaluate your health and lifestyle. Higher CQ knowledge on subcultures. Employees should know what the cultures and subcultures are. Another strategy is employee interaction. When working with German coworkers, they do not participate in small talk like Americans do. One last strategy is to have a higher CQ drive. Employees should want to find ways to make people understand German culture.